I'm live. Oh, okay. I think this is working. I'm trying something different this time. And I'm recording my desktop screen, or my window, not my phone. So hopefully this works properly and isn't completely messed up. But let's see. I'll wait a few seconds just for people to, I guess, come into the stream if they want to check it out live. But most of you will probably be checking this out as a replay, just to watch the video for the tier list. So I guess I'll just run through it. Hey guys. Okay. Yeah, so I'm trying something different this time around because it takes a lot of time to edit videos and put them together, and a lot of people want to know this info, and I can't really get around to making these videos, at least to the quality that I want. So I figured I'll just run through it on kind of like a recorded stream, just to give people that info, because I think the discounts and stuff don't end for another day or so. So people can take the tier list and then decide what characters they want to pick up, or remaining ones they want to pick up, and potentially how they want to build them if they still have selectors and stuff remaining, or they just have the CTPs in their stash and haven't decided to allocate them anywhere yet. King in Black, final boss, the King in Black. Yeah, you could kind of guess what that is. Okay, so I think I'll just jump straight into this because this might take a while, but I'll try to be concise and go through it fairly quickly. Honestly, about time you got around to this, yeah, it's long overdue. Okay, so I'm probably gonna do two tier lists. The first one is the AC tier list, that's just with all the characters. So I got all the character graphics. So this is all the characters with their latest uniforms. I'll place them in the tier list that I'll explain shortly, how I kind of broke it down. And then the other one, which I'm not entirely sure if I'll get to or is really even that important for most people, is the kind of build tier list for the characters. This is mostly just kind of where I've allocated the CTPs that I have, and where I think those characters kind of belong on the list for the CTPs that you can use for them. When I go through the characters, I'll kind of mention some alternative options that you can use for them, but for the most part, it's just going to be kind of a preference, right? So it's not, if you don't match this list, you've done something wrong. It's just to give you some additional information on what you kind of want to do with your builds and your characters. But I think this is the one that most people are looking forward to. It's the AC character tier list. So I'll kind of just run through this first. Just give me a second here. Ooh, what did I do? One sec, I'm just kind of... Okay. Just want to see the comments while I'm have access to this as well. What other games do I play? Bunch of other ones. Overwatch. I want to play Rivals, but I got to do all this Marvel Future Fight content first. One sec here. Okay, so I have the comments here. Okay, so I'm just gonna jump straight into this. Whew, there's a lot of characters to go through. The tier list that I've broken down is the top 4 are the ones that you probably are most interested in. The other ones are just kind of for people who are really into Alliance Conquest. Final boss is reserved for one singular character that if you watch my last video, you probably know who that is, according to me. Some people might disagree. Wall meta is basically all the characters that are used kind of together, or individually to basically block the opponents so that they have to use multiple characters or are kind of the toughest ones to take down. So these are characters that not only have really strong offense but are very difficult to take down for the most part, and are just kind of used to, you can kind of like stack them in a zone and then people will have difficulty taking that zone. Top meta are ones that aren't necessarily kind of difficult to take down, but they are still very good characters. And then meta busters are characters that don't really have the defenses there, but they can potentially take out some of the ranks or tiers above them. And then from there you go down to high mid. So this is just characters that are good, that also have good PvP effects, like Eye from Ignore, Reflect, things like that. Mid is just characters that are good but don't have these kind of effects for the most part. And then low mid is usually characters that can have those good effects, Eye from Ignore, Reflect, things like that, but are kind of don't perform as well or are missing certain upgrades and things like that. Then supports are basically just characters that you're going to pair with all the other characters in Alliance Conquest. So that would be characters like Agent Venom, things like that. And then missing something is just characters that are kind of on the cusp of being good, but they need either a uniform or an upgrade. They haven't gotten one of those two things. And then outdated is just characters that you're going to pretty much use to, I forgot what it's called, to kind of like donate into those zones where you get the bonus effects. Or just filler characters that you're just going to put on the bottom if you need to fill out a team. Anyways, enough chit chat. Okay. Yeah, so the first one is Abomination. This is going to be in supports. You're pretty much just going to be using the character for support for the most part. Then you have Absorbing Man. He is going to be probably mid-level. He has Reflect, but is kind of missing kind of those other stronger effects like Eye from Ignore. You can kind of use him just to reflect physical damage. Adam Warlock is going to be a wall meta. He is a character that can not only deal a lot of damage, but is going to be difficult to take down. Arrow is probably a mid character. She is a little bit sneaky. She has like a self debuff from her artifact, so she is kind of decent. She doesn't have those kind of better effects for PvP, but she's good regardless. Agent Venom is going to be supports. He's going to be, I'll try and order these kind of near the front so you can kind of see which ones are probably higher value. But for mostly just for supports. For the other characters, it's just going to be, they're going to be mostly on the same level anyways. The tier list is broken down into a lot of tiers for that reason. Agent Venom is going to be in supports. You can use him in kind of the Meta Buster rank, but I put him in supports because when you're mostly just going to be pairing him with characters like Carnage, Silver Surfer, and Null. So when you do that, the character will more than likely end up dying, and you're probably going to use him as a support for those teams. But he is good if you get him to tier 4, but for most players he's going to be a support, and probably one of the top supports in the game for the current meta. Amadeus Cho is basically missing something. He needs either like another uniform or another upgrade to be able to do something in PvP. America Chavez is high mid. You can also potentially put her in supports, but she actually does quite well because she has that Eye from Ignore and a lot of meta stats. So I would probably put her in high mid instead of supports first, because she will potentially survive some fights depending on the teams that you use and can take out some pretty strong characters. Ancient One is going to be high mid as well. She has good reflect. You can potentially put her in the sports category, but you're more than likely going to be using her for reflect capability, and that kind of warrants her being in the high mid level because you can take out a lot of energy characters even if you don't fight meta characters with her. Angel is probably going to be high mid as well, especially if you can get him to tier 4. He doesn't have Eye from Ignore, but he does provide a lot of support capabilities to the team. and can do pretty well as a standalone because he has a lot of layers of dodge. Angela is going to be mid. She has support capabilities, and she has self debuff removal, I believe, but will mostly just be on the mid level. I don't remember exactly what her passive effect is. I don't know if it applies just to bosses. I think it does. So in AC, she's mostly just going to be mid level, if I remember that correctly. And then this one, which I forgot the name of, is going to be high mid. He has a lot of top PvP effects. He is just kind of missing some particular effects and upgrades to push him into the meta level. So when he gets those, I'm pretty sure he's going to jump up there, but he's currently in the high mid. Then Ant-Man is going to be in the mid level, I would say. He can potentially be in the high mid, but he's missing some of those higher kind of meta effects. Again, iframe ignore, things like that. So you're mostly just going to be fighting mid-level characters with him, which is kind of unfortunate because his dodge layers and stuff were actually pretty good. He would just need those extra little things to push him to the next level. Apocalypse is going to be in the top meta or wall meta. Yeah, okay, I think I'll go top meta. So wall meta is just kind of the ones that are really, really at the top, and then ironically enough, top meta is just going to be the ones following that. So Apocalypse doesn't necessarily survive to the same extent that some of the ones that are going to be in the wall meta, as you'll see, will, but he is a very strong character. Is just one notch underneath in terms of the survival. Arachnite is going to be mid-level, has CC effects, has some good iframe ignore, but again is missing those kind of key effects to push him to the next level. Ares is missing something. He needs a uniform or an upgrade to perform better. You could probably argue that he goes in low mid, but that's kind of where I'm putting him. This one, I'm going to forget a lot of these characters when I'm doing this live, but he's going to be in high mid. He has iframe ignore, he has reflect as well. You can pair him with Ancient One, Wong, and other characters and take out some pretty strong characters that have energy reflect. Mordo, that's the name. Oof. Yeah, I'm going to be blanking on some of these names because the pressure of doing this live as opposed to just doing retakes when I'm recording. And then Baron Zemo is going to be low mid. He's actually... low mid, I would say, is also kind of a sneaky category, so characters that can kind of sneak in wins. Baron Zemo actually has a pretty high priority iframe ignore. I don't remember on what skill, but if you do decently well on the top team in Alliance Conquest, the bottom, and put Baron Zemo with a bunch of villains at the bottom, Baron Zemo can actually hit the opponents before they can, and if you put something like a CTP of Greed or a proc on him, he can potentially wipe out those characters before they start healing again or doing other things like that. So he's kind of low mid. He is missing some stuff, but he actually does perform pretty decently at his current level. Beast is going to be mostly support. He's also sort of high mid just because of his crazy survival. He has a lot of invincibility, but for the most part, I think you're going to be pairing him for his support capabilities, and he's better than Abomination, just because he provides that heal and those other effects. Beta Ray Bill is going to be low mid. He doesn't really have the PvP effects that some of these other characters do, but he does have some pretty crazy burst damage, so if he can actually catch the characters on the opponent team, he can potentially burst them down pretty quickly. Bishop is probably missing something. You can argue that he would go into low mid because he does have some decent effects, but he really should get an upgrade, either a uniform at the very least, and then potentially if he gets an upgrade further than that, he'll be pretty strong because I think he has energy, a lot of high energy defense, and can absorb energy damage, I think, or kind of negate it while also increasing his attack. So that's actually pretty good, but is kind of missing some stuff. Again, you could argue low mid. I would say that blah Black Bolt is in high mid if you have his artifact, since he can get that iframe ignore and can get some burst damage. He's probably not as good as some of the other characters in high mid, but will definitely get some work done if he can catch the opponents off a quick skill and have that artifact proc. Black Cat is going to be mostly support. She would need an upgrade to be anywhere in low mid or mid. She does have a lot of iframes though, so you can kind of catch some opponents off guard like that. Black Panther will likely be low mid as well. Similar to Beta Ray Bill, he is lacking PvP effects, but can catch characters off guard and burst them down pretty quickly, especially with a PvE build. Black Widow is going to be in the meta buster, I would say. Might have to refine this a little bit because I don't remember how I did the meta levels, but I think she is meta buster just because she can take out any of the characters above her, but doesn't really have necessarily the very top, kind of the higher level of survivability. Blade is going to be mid, doesn't have really any PvP effects, but does have, well, to an extent, but does have some kind of burst damage and iframes that he can work off of. Blue Dragon is going to be meta buster. With the Warriors of the Sky, you can take out some pretty stronger metas than her, so that's why she falls there. And obviously with the revive kind of nuke effect with the Warriors of the Sky, that's probably as high as you can put her. She's not really going to be holding teams because most people can take out the Warriors of the Sky now. Let's see here. So Blue Marvel is going to be arguably in supports, but I would say that he is sort of mid-level. If you're fighting characters within this batch of characters, he can actually do some work. He can lock down the opponents, has that super guard break penetration, I think, on some skills, has good iframes. He mostly falls there, and he's going to obviously support the characters as well, but yeah, you can argue between these two. I would say that Bullseye is probably low mid to mid. He can potentially iframe a bunch to stay alive, but for the most part, I don't think he's going to compare to some of the characters or value that you get in the level above him. Cable is definitely going to be in the mid-level or high mid. He's actually a little bit sneaky, so I guess you could argue this level as well, but he does have some good priority iframes. He also has very high penetration and burst damage, so I'm pretty sure that you can put him on this level, especially if Ant-Man is here. Captain Marvel is going to be a meta buster, so this kind of this character kind of encapsulates more what meta buster is compared to top meta. So the meta buster can take out characters above them, as I mentioned before, but doesn't necessarily have the best survivability to while metas will basically hold off and be tough to take down, top metas will be not as difficult to take down but are pretty good offensively as well. And then again, meta busters are ones that can counter the ones above, don't really have the best survivability though. Black Dwarf is high mid. He, wherever I put them on the list from left to right doesn't really matter too much here. I'll mostly just focus on that for support. Black Dwarf is good because he has Reflect, he has Guard Break immunity built in, has an iframe ignore as well. When he gets an upgrade, he might potentially jump to the meta levels, especially if more Black Order characters get upgrades as well. But he's definitely in the high-end level. Black Swan is top meta character. She has good survivability with her passive effect, where she gets reduced damage once her health starts dropping down. She also has good offensive capabilities because she can constantly pressure the opponent and kind of lock them down with super guard break. Clea is outdated. She needs an upgrade. Cassie is probably the best you put her is support to provide that support passive. Maybe a low mid if you want to push that, but for the most part, I guess you would use her with some combination of low mid or support. Colossus is obviously at the top of supports. I would say just a bit behind Agent Venom just because the meta is so favored towards symbiotes right now. But he's basically a support that you can use for any character, unlike Agent Venom, So you can kind of argue that he could go before, but most people know how good Colossus is by now. So Corvus is going to be high mid, mostly because of the potential that you can take out full teams. Ideally, you would want to use Corvus probably on the second team or something like that, where the first team, if you end up failing, will have most of their debuffs removed. Because Corvus has a very long awakening skill, you kind of want them to be not at their full potential so that he can actually activate that awakening skill and burst them down, because it's so long that oftentimes characters that have Ignore can just kill him before he does anything. Crystal, I'd say, is missing something. She's decent with her iframes, but needs something to push her into kind of the usable levels. Cyclops is mostly just going to be support. Yeah, this is kind of a tragedy. They should really upgrade Cyclops. At one point, I think he had iframe ignore on his uniform, which I guess you can test out, but his offense capabilities will probably be so bad that it won't even really matter. But yeah, they really should kind of do something with him, because just a pure support for a character this popular is kind of ridiculous. Quake is outdated. She definitely needs some kind of upgrade. Captain America is now in the top meta, especially if you combo him with the zombie characters like Weapon Hex. He can hold down zones and does a lot of offensive damage, especially when his iframe ignore kicks in. Daredevil is going to be high mid. He needs an upgrade with the defenders to push him further, but he still actually does pretty well, does quite a lot of work with that iframe ignore, super guard break, penetration, locking down the opponents, and kind of dancing in his iframes. Carnage will be in the wall meta now, if I'm not mistaken. So I haven't gotten around to reviewing Carnage, but from what I've seen, he's more than likely going to be comboed with Agent Venom. He's going to be very difficult to take down for most characters because he's going to have such high survivability, especially if people build him with things like a refinement, potentially an authority, or a CTP of conquest to boost up his survivability even more. Darkhawk, probably low mid, only because he has some kind of reflect in his kit and can iframe. You maybe can potentially argue mid, but I would say that he's probably somewhere in the low mid area, just from what I've tested. I want to put Cassandra Nova into mid. I think she has very good kind of iframes to hide from any kind of damage. She has a good leadership skill, and just largely kind of falls here because she doesn't have anything to push her above. She doesn't have, I'm not sure if she has penetration or not. I don't really remember. I don't think she does, but her survivability is quite good. And yeah, she would need a little bit extra to push her a bit further. Deathlock is outdated, just doesn't really have anything. Bear Girl Karate is in the high mid level. She has reflex, she has iframe ignore. At one point she was really good, but as the meta kind of shifted and more characters got upgraded, she isn't really as strong, especially with the summon kind of always allowing the opponent to have something to activate their skills, as opposed to her just kind of hiding in iframes. Hopefully they kind of address that if they want to make her valuable in PvP moving forward, but I kind of also suspect that they might want to push her for PvE, just because they haven't really upgraded a combat female character for those ABX days. But at the same time, they don't really switch up characters' kits too often to jump from PvE to PvP too much. So if they've kind of constantly pushed her for PvP, it seems like that's where they're going to continue to do that. Crossbones is likely low mid at best. You could say he's missing something, but I guess he still does decently with some of his iframes. I don't know, like, maybe I changed this at the end a little bit, but like putting some of these characters on the same level might not be that great, but I think largely that you're just going to get different values from them. Some of these characters might survive a little bit better, some of these might have more burst damage. Destroyer is going to be high mid only for the reason that you can reflect some of the top meta characters, and he's just a standing pylon. Other than that, he would fall underneath, but that reflect value is so good that you probably can say you can put him in high mid, or I guess mid, if you think that he isn't on this level. Voodoo, Dr. Voodoo is likely low mid at best. Doesn't really have, he has that kind of debuff leadership thing where he buffs the effects up, but for the most part, I think he's also support to an extent, but for the most part, he isn't really missing something, but could use better values and stuff. Dakin, I would say, is high mid, with his artifact having extra survivability and adding some kind of proc to him. You can take out some pretty strong characters with him. I have a Mighty Greed, which I recently upgraded to a Brilliant Greed for science, of course, just to see how he does. But yeah, I would say he's very strong now with his upgrade. Potentially, if he got to tier 4, he could do some pretty crazy damage. Domino is going to be high mid as well. I guess for characters to be in Meta Buster, I would say that they probably need a tier 4 at this point. But yeah, some of these characters can, I guess, fall into Meta Buster because they can take them out. Domino is a very good character because she has Reflect, Eye from Ignore, and somewhat decent survivability if you build her for that. So she can potentially take out some of the characters above her class. But yeah, for the Meta Busters, I think they would need a little bit more survivability to put them in that category. I think I'm probably going to restrict it for tier 4 characters, but I'll see. I can kind of change the list at the end, I guess. Drax is going to be mid-level just because he's missing some iframe ignore or effects like that, but he does have some pretty good lockdown and with his taunts and things like that. Electro is going to be high mid. He has iframe ignore, has good burst damage, good kind of survivability and healing for fighting characters within this class. I guess that's also why I would distinguish this as the meta tier and this kind of the mid tier, and I didn't put Domino and Dakin in these tiers because they're mostly just going to be fighting characters within this class. You won't necessarily use these characters too often to fight the meta characters. Electra is going to be here. She is kind of a mid-level mid. I almost want to put her one class underneath, but she does have those eye from ignores and things, so if you're fighting characters within the same class, she's going to be there. Maybe I should change this. I'm not sure, but yeah, Emma, high mid, isn't tier 4. I'm pretty sure she's going to jump up here at some point. And again, I guess you can argue that you can put some of these characters in the Meta Buster class if they can take out some of the meta characters, but I'm just going to leave it like this for now. This is going to be, I'm going to try to speed this up. Maybe I'm talking too much. Dazzler is going to be support. She's not really going to do anything much in Alliance Conquest. She does have a heal on one of her skills that is a team-based heal, but she's not really going to survive much to do that, so you'd still argue that she is in the support class. Deadpool is going to be top meta. You can take out characters that are in the wall meta, and you can potentially argue that he is in the wall meta. Yeah, I might change that at the end, but some Deadpools can kind of hold their own, so I guess you can say you can put him here. He has the immortality effect, so he's going to live longer. I think that's a good assessment. You can put him in the wall meta. He can be countered with some strong combat characters, but for the most part, he will hold his own. I think he can do some pretty surprising things, so I would say that he's probably in the wall meta. Exodus is going to be support because he provides heal or HP increase to your team. Doesn't really have anything else going for him for that. Fandral is outdated. This character is missing something, needs an upgrade. Just for the longest time hasn't been touched, even though Domino got upgraded. I forgot what this I always forget what this guy's name is. If everyone knows in the comments, then you can leave it and I can check it out. But Gambit is going to be low mid. He has penetration and good burst on his 5th skill. Other than that, he's a complete glass cannon. You could argue he's missing something and isn't really worthy of being at that class, but yeah, it's kind of unfortunate they haven't upgraded him yet, especially with the X-Men 97 or whatever year it is that I'm not sure why they haven't upgraded him yet. He was so fun to play when he first came out, and they've just kind of left him in the dust. They could easily make him kind of hybrid character that can be good for, obviously good for PvE with his high number of hits, but also potentially sleeper for PvP if they wanted to add Eye from Ignore to his kind of insane burst skill. That would be pretty awesome. Support, Ghost is going to fall there just because she doesn't provide really any other value besides that. Phantom X, that's what this character is called. I always forget just because they left him in the dust. I would say that Gamora is mid. If you build her with invincibility, she actually does pretty good offensive damage and has some pretty decent survivability. She is actually kind of sneaky if you build her for Alliance Conquest like that, but for the most part, people are probably going to build her for PvE. Doctor Strange will likely fall into the same category, unless I guess you use him with weapon hacks, but that would be kind of a waste to do that considering you have better options. He does have some pretty good burst damage. He has Reflect. He has his artifact will also kind of lock down the opponent, I believe, I think. Or maybe it's one of his passives that has kind of a time freeze on it or something. Doctor Doom will be in the top meta. So Apocalypse and Doom were really not that well received. They obviously were both upgraded, which could have been upgraded even further, but they're actually pretty good in the current meta. Obviously, they should be better, in my opinion, but as it stands, they're actually kind of will actually put in work and do some pretty crazy things that are a little bit kind of like wild cards, especially Doctor Doom with his quick counter skill. If the opponent doesn't get through that counter skill and it triggers for Doctor Doom, he can potentially just one-shot them, and since he has 2 lives, he'll more than likely kind of either wipe out a team or potentially win even by himself. Dr. Octopus, probably low mid, has good burst damage. Most people will build him for PvE. Not really much else to say besides that. Gilgamesh, high mid, not enough to push him into a meta tier. It would be quite interesting if the Eternals got an upgrade, but Gilgamesh is still actually pretty decent if you're fighting characters within the mid class. He will do work, especially if he gets those other characters to support him. Dormammu is probably, I want to say, in the high mid. I guess you could argue he's in the high mid. He's barely like holding on to being here. I'm not entirely sure if he should fall into the high mid category. I'm only putting him here because sometimes he can get those Eye from Ignore reflects off that can take out some, can wipe out some pretty good teams, but he really does need an upgrade to kind of be worth the value. So, yeah, you could easily argue that he falls into mid or potentially even low mid and just is kind of a sneaky character sometimes, but I put him here because you can get some value out of him if you pair him with some characters. Yeah, that can go kind of either way. Ebony Maw is going to be, I'm going to put him into support because most people will use him for support capabilities, but at tier 4 you could potentially argue, you can put him sort of in the meta buster. He's missing, like, most of the characters in here have Eye from Ignore, almost all of them do. Well, all of them do so far, but he would probably be in the high mid. He would need something more to push him up here, but he can sometimes take out characters in the meta kind of area. But for the most part, he's going to be used for support, so I'm putting him here. Echo, I don't have at tier 4. She isn't going to be meta. because she is missing iframe ignore, I believe, but she is quite good outside of the meta, like outside of the top meta kind of stacks here. She is quite good because she can take out some strong characters, constantly stays in iframes, and has some pretty good leadership passive effects to really boost up your team. Whew, okay. I'll try and speed this up. Elsa is outdated, hasn't gotten an upgrade in forever. Enchantress is actually kind of... You can put her in the mid tier, even though she doesn't have iframe ignore, but I'll put her in the support tier. Because she will likely be used for support, but you can very well argue that she falls somewhere into mid or low mid because she can go into iframes and has good damage. Falcon is probably going to be in the mid or high mid as well. I want to put him in high mid just because he provides the support capability. He does actually have good healing and a lot of iframes that he can hide in, and actually does some pretty decent burst damage too because he buffs up zombie characters and is a zombie character himself, so he boosts himself. Or maybe I should put him in support. Maybe, what do people think about this? I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah. Maybe, okay, I'll put him in support because people are mostly just going to use him for support. I guess when he gets his upgrade, I can put him in high mid, but yeah, he kind of falls in that category if you're using him as a solo, but no one's going to use him as a solo, so he's just going to be support. Franklin is going to be support as well for the Fantastic Four. If he gets an upgrade, and if he gets iframe ignore, or even if he doesn't, I'm pretty sure he'll go into high mid because he is universal type. He has a lot of strong effects. But yeah, that's where he stands for now. God, there's a lot of characters left, so I'll speed this up. Ghost Panther, support. For Ghost Rider, you're not really going to use him for anything else. Ghost Rider is arguably in the top meta. I don't really think he holds his own anymore as the wall meta characters, even though he has the immortality effect. Maybe I'll put him here just because he has the immortality effect. So I guess he'll kind of like linger on if opponents don't take out both of his lives. If you pair him with some good teams, I guess you can keep him alive and he'll be kind of a nuisance. But for the most part, on his own, he might not stay alive if you're using some of the characters within that same class. But he does have some really strong counter effects for if you're fighting villains, so I guess it's justifiable that you can put him here, especially because he can take out most of these other characters relatively easily. Giant Man, outdated. A lot of these characters are going to go down fairly quickly because they're going to fall into outdated class. Gladiator is in the high meta. If he had iframe ignore, he would be... would he be in Metabuster? Yeah, if he had iframe ignore, I would put him in Metabuster, but I think he is in the high meta. Maybe I'll rearrange some of these at the end if the list is too long for high meta. But yeah, I would say that he's actually really strong without having iframe ignore. So any of the characters in this list, he'll basically take down relatively easily. For the most part, if they don't counter with reflect and other things. This character is, I guess, missing something. He's kind of outdated, but yeah, he needs a uniform or something. He has a decent leadership. Gorgon, missing something, or outdated, hasn't got an upgrade ever. This character's a little bit better with iframes and stuff. Gorilla Man, I think that's his name, is missing something. You can argue that he falls into low mid because he just kind of jumps around in iframes and has high HP. Gore is going to be in the top meta now. He previously, I guess, was in the wall meta, but a lot of strong characters have come out now, so he doesn't really hold his own too much. Other characters can take him out, even ones that fall in the high mid level. Green or Red Goblin is going to be support. That's all he does for the most part in Alliance Conquest. Groot is going to be mid-level. He does have the revive. He doesn't really have It's really unfortunate they didn't give him Awaken. He would have been in the higher kind of tiers. But yeah, he can kind of hold his own, does kind of good burst damage, has good iframes. I would say that Gwenpool is actually high mid. I've taken out some Madeline Priors or Goblin Queens with her. If you build her with invincibility, she actually does pretty strong offensive damage and has good survivability. So you can argue that she falls in high mid. She probably belongs in mid level, but I'll kind of put her here for now. And then I'll see where I go from there. Havoc is likely... should be in high mid, but I never really see him do much as I want to. I guess he should be here. Maybe I should swap these. Yeah, this probably makes more sense that I swap these. I haven't really seen anything too great from Havoc. He does have iframe ignore. He doesn't have proper penetration. He kind of needs an upgrade. But yeah, actually, no, forget that. I'm gonna go with this. I've seen Gwenpool do more than Havoc does, but yeah, these are kind of interchangeable. Whatever, you kind of get the gist of it. You'll get an idea of if you want these characters, where you want to build them. Hawkeye is going to be high mid, has iframe ignore. His skills are kind of slow, but he still falls in this category. He can do some work. Heimdall, probably mid-level, has good effects, like blind, has a bubble to protect his team and stuff, but would need a little bit extra to go into high mid. Hela is going to be top meta or support. This is kind of arguable. Most people are going to use her for support, but she can be a little bit annoying to take down, I guess. Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe she falls in the supports category for now, because I think a lot of people, or a lot of characters can kind of iframe her. She is still kind of tricky to take down with immortality, so I guess I'll leave her at the top meta for now. Hellcat, outdated. This character is... I don't really use her for Alliance Conquest. You can maybe argue that she's low mid with offensive capabilities. That's, yeah. I don't know what else to say about that one. Hulk is going to be in the top meta. You can take out pretty much all these characters within here, and has decent survivability. So I guess all of these characters here have decent survivability as well as good offense, have even better survivability and even more offense, and then they can take out these characters above. That's how the tier list is working. Mouse keeps getting stuck. Hulkbuster. He's a disappointment. I'm pretty sure, I don't remember if this character, Hope, is support for who? For Cable? Hulkbuster, I don't remember if Hulkbuster has iframe ignore, I think he does have iframe ignore, but is missing penetration. He just really doesn't perform as well as he should, and will struggle to take out some of the meta characters. Can potentially survive and do work, but I would say that he's not one of the ones that you want to focus the most on compared to the other characters. This character's outdated. Torch will likely just be low mid. Hydro-Man is probably missing something. He has good effects, but needs some kind of upgrade. Torch is here because he has decent burst damage. Compare him with other characters like Thing and Valeria and stuff like that. Doesn't really have enough on his own to be in the higher categories. These are kind of, besides these these meta characters here, high mid and mid are ones that you would want to focus on immediately after that. So Torch doesn't necessarily fall into that category. Hyperion, I would say, is high mid because if you pair him with a good team, he has a lot of good effects. Iframe ignore, his artifact gives him damage reduction. I believe that he also has penetration, so he has a lot of good effects and some kind of lockdown and stuff like that. So yeah, I guess the characters vary somewhat, not drastically, but do vary quite a bit between one another in this level, but are still ones that you want to focus the most on right after Meta Buster. And I don't think he would fall in the mid category because he can take out some of these characters. And again, he has Eye from Ignore and more meta stats than these other characters don't have. Hope is support for mutants. I don't remember that her artifact does that. So I guess I can put her into support. It's a good insight. Yeah, I guess you can put her into support. These two don't really matter that much. Two levels, like the difference between them. Iceman, a low mid at best, has some decent iframes. Could use more. It'd be fun to have him as a PvE character at a higher level, considering Iceman is a popular character. But yeah, they're kind of dropped the ball on him. It would have been pretty awesome if he had kind of revive and potentially some kind of reflect. He seems somewhat similar to Emma to some extent, but yeah. Icarus, you can put into high mid. He's a little bit kind of behind these characters, but he does have good effects, has those PvP meta effects, just doesn't have enough to push him further. Doesn't really fall under these characters because he can hide in iframes and iframe ignore them, has that iframe ignore artifact. Would be awesome if you got an upgrade. All the Eternals, really, if they got an upgrade, would be pretty fun in PvP, since you can make another full set of teams for Otherworld Battle and things like that. Icon, high mid, has reflect, iframe ignore, can take out some strong characters. This guy, I forgot what his name is, does need an upgrade. It's not Pyro. What the hell is this guy's name? Fire Eyes. Fire Eyes belongs to there. I forgot what his name is. Inferno, that's the one. He needs an upgrade. He's outdated. Most of the Inhuman characters have just been kind of shafted for the most part. So yeah, needs an upgrade. This is kind of tricky. I don't necessarily think I think I can put her in the top meta, but this is only dependent on if Franklin is on the team to give her the immortality effect, which more than likely will be the case. Yeah, or maybe here, I'm not sure. She doesn't have Eye from Ignore. It's one of the rare cases where it doesn't, so I kind of want to put her here. She can take out some pretty strong characters just by surviving and going into that tier 4 skill, but yeah, I'm not sure. This is arguable between these two. Null is surrounded by a sea of mid. Not even sure. Where is Null in this list? Somewhere here. Where's Waldo? Where is Waldo? Yeah, anyways, I'll get to him. Low mid, iframe ignore, or not, doesn't have iframe ignore, has some iframes, decent burst, I guess. This character would need more. You can argue he's in low mid just because he iframes a lot. He's actually quite decent, but yeah, he kind of I'll put him here for now. I'll put him here. If he got an upgrade in or some kind of uniform or something, he could easily get pushed higher. Here, I think she has decent iframes. You can kind of argue mid, but yeah, maybe put her in support. Actually, that makes more sense. Yeah, let's drop her somewhere here. Doesn't really matter too much, to be honest. Iron Man, mid, has iframes, has good burst damage. Compare him with decent teams like War Machine and things like that. Doesn't really have enough to push him further than that. And because he's tier 4, he'll have an advantage over most other characters. Jane should be support. I should start putting more of these characters in support, but I don't really think about that when I'm putting together teams too much. Let's see here. Jean is going to be, previously was wall meta, but now definitely isn't. Maybe I'll organize the left to right later, but yeah, previously was wall meta, she isn't now. She is still good, and can potentially kind of hold her own to some extent. I would, yeah, with a revive, she still belongs in the top meta. Not really wall or the meta buster, because she can still be annoying to deal with, especially if you exhaust some of your team. Jessica Jones will be support. I gotta speed this up. This character is missing something. She does decent with iframes, but do that. Jubilee is kind of just needs more. She doesn't have enough to be able to do too much. Juggernaut is going to be in the high mid. He has iframe ignore, high healing, an artifact that gives him high base HP. You pair him with a good mutant team and he'll put in work, especially versus the characters within the same class. Caecilius needs more. Needs an upgrade, has iframes, some decent effects, but doesn't really have anything to push him further. Kahori is a top support character for PvP because she can't be countered by Molecule Man. Kamala is likely low mid at best, decent burst damage, doesn't really have too much else going for her. I'll try to speed this up a little bit. King is going to be in the meta buster. I guess you could say top meta. I feel like, okay, I'm probably going to put him into meta buster. He can take out some of the characters above him, but he doesn't really have the same capability that Gore has, because Gore has that immunity to super guard break. So yeah, and he wasn't really as well received as Gore, so yeah, not really as good. Karnak, inhuman, so obviously outdated. Kate actually falls here. She has an artifact that gives her iframe ignore. She has a lot of lingering effects and hides in iframes. Is actually a pretty solid character for a speed type without iframe ignore. I don't think every character here doesn't necessarily have to have iframe ignore, but they do have to have a lot of the other kind of meta effects that would allow them to be above these other characters that they're probably missing. Katie needs an upgrade to have any kind of value above that. Outdated, though. I mean, you could argue she is support as well. Yeah. Here at best, burst damage, not much else going for him. This character actually does decent at a very low level, but definitely needs some kind of upgrade. I want to say he's outdated, but you can also get away with some stuff with him. This character is likely mid-level. He has some decent kind of lingering attacks and stuff. He can hide in iframes. He's not that bad. So again, Nocturnal's upgrade or update would be pretty interesting. Kingpin probably falls under the same kind of category. But yeah, probably more low mid area. I don't think he performs to the same extent. This character is largely used for her leadership. I don't remember if she has a support capability. I don't think that she does. But yeah, low mid at best because she has some decent iframes. Oh, here we go. Okay, so there's no joke I can make here that'll be funny if I put him in any other tier list, but he's in the final boss tier list. If you watch my last video, the character is borderline, like pushing the balance kind of levels. He can completely outclass any character in the game so far, even without really having a level 80 even, or a tier 4. Or having kind of top end CTP or anything like that. You don't even really need an artifact. He has built-in immortality at the highest level. So like you get this character You can, if you decide to play on manual or you just throw in a bunch of supports, you can pretty much just run through timeline if you're not facing mirrors of nulls at tier 4. If you're facing other characters, you don't really have to do anything. Just put null on the team, you'll pretty much win if you're not in Challenger, which most people won't be in, because there his immortality effect gets countered. So you kind of have to do some tricks there, and it's kind of why I recommended a CTP of Conquest for him there, because if you just hit 1 health once, you're kind of done. So yeah, but that's the character's on his own level. People argue that he's in the top class with these characters. Null can multiple in Alliance Conquest so far. I've seen that you need at least 2 teams to take him out. You need to get lucky with procs and things, and for him not to zero your health or activate your artifacts and stuff first for you to be able to have a chance to take him out. So I would say that he's easily well above every other character here, and I'm pretty sure they kind of did this deliberately if they're planning on giving Sentry an upgrade with the Thunderbolts kind of movie, because before Null came out, a lot of people were speculating that Sentry wouldn't get any kind of upgrade because he's already so insanely powerful, but now that there is someone above him, so much further above, I would say, there is some kind of justification to upgrade Sentry again. It's really odd how King is lower than Gore. I put him lower than Gore because he doesn't have super guard break immunity. Gore has that, so he can actually not be kind of guard broken in any way, whereas King can be guard broken. But yeah, this you can kind of argue that you can put him up here. But yeah, Korath would need a little bit more. Doesn't really have. You can argue low mid, but I think he needs a little bit more. At least the uniform, at the very least. This character is going to be support. Inhumans, obviously outdated. Outdated. You can use him for leadership. Sadly, outdated. Has a good artifact, but yeah. Loki, you can put in. I think you can almost argue that you can put him in mid. I want to actually put him in mid because he has his burst damage and kind of lingering effects and stuff can really do some damage depending on the teams that you use. For the most part, he's not going to do anything too crazy, but he kind of is in the same category with Iron Man and Cable, where he can pull off some kind of funky stuff. Luke is going to be high mid, just a crazy leadership and reflect character, has eye from ignore. He needs an upgrade because he would be really fun to use. Excuse me, at the meta level. Oh my god, I really got to speed this up. I didn't think this would take so long. Okay, Luna, probably low mid. Doesn't have too much iframes to hide in. Madeline, same level as no, you can put Madeline in the wall meta just because she has the immortality effect. So that means you have to take out both of her lives, otherwise she's gonna stay alive there. So plus she's not as susceptible to reflect. So yeah, she would be in the wall meta. Magic, high mid, has immortality, has eye from ignore, just missing a little bit to push her even further. I would say that a lot of these characters can also take out meta characters, but this is the kind of separation that I did, that I covered a couple times now. Magneto, probably low mid. You can probably put him in mid level for the same reasons as Loki, Cable, and Iron Man. Can hide in iframes, does some decent burst damage, has bonus damage versus human characters, I believe. Makari is in the high mid. She doesn't have eye from ignore. I don't remember if she has penetration, but she immediately opens with super guard break skill that does a high amount of damage. She's kind of a sneaky character and can take out some pretty strong characters just by herself. If you kind of have to ride the luck wave, but yeah, she is actually quite good. And again, Eternal's upgrade or update, I keep saying upgrade, would be pretty interesting for these characters. Malekith is I kind of want to say high high mid. He has a crazy advantage versus hero characters. He hides in very long iframes, so he definitely can take out some of these other characters. I actually previously used him to take out Carnage before Carnage got an upgrade, so I would definitely put him at this level. And you'd also have to consider that he didn't even really get any kind of bonus versus Carnage because, like I mentioned, I think the bonus is to superhero characters. But yeah, I would say he falls here, especially because you also have the debuff leadership. Man Thing. Wait, is this Man Thing or Swamp Thing? I always forget these two. I kind of messed this up. I'm gonna get crucified for this. Mid level, I would say, maybe. Somewhere in the mid level. Kind of, you can argue he's in the low mid, but he does have that artifact that gives him pretty insane health. I don't remember. I think he provides some support capabilities to your team, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of sometimes pair him with Doctor Strange, so that's one of the things you can do. Mantis is going to be support. I guess you could argue he falls into support, but I don't really remember. Inhumans, so obviously outdated. Baku, great support for Alliance Conquest, gives you that damage reduction versus villains, also damage increase versus supervillains, so really good to pair with some characters. Medusa, support. This is going to be kind of all mixed up now in terms of left to right priority, so just whatever. I've separated them into enough tiers where you kind of know what you want to get or not. Mephisto, I would say, still falls into the high mid. Barely, same level as Dormammu, barely kind of hangs on here, only because they can hide in some iframes and have iframe ignore and 2 lives, so that's really the only reason they're there. Miles, I would say, is mid level. I would say he's mid level. He can hide in those extra layers of dodge and has some pretty high burst damage versus villain types, so you can actually pull off some pretty crazy wins with kind of like an authority build Miles, but not you just have to keep in mind that you want to use him versus characters that don't really have a lot of iframe ignore, otherwise he's not really gonna do that much. Low mid needs kind of a little bit more to push her further, but she does have decent iframes. Mr. Fantastic falls into top meta. He falls into top meta. He's not really going to be holding zones, but is able to do some pretty insane damage to meta characters and kind of counter them with a top built kind of team with Invisible Woman and Franklin. What's his face? This guy. This guy will fall into... I want to put him to high mid only if you have the artifact. Mr. Sinister, I believe is his name. Yeah. I mean, like, he's a pretty popular character. I don't know why I was blanking on that. But yeah, if this character gets a tier 4 and gets some more meta stats, he can easily go in the wall meta. He has the immortality artifact. Is like some of these characters, Magic, Sinister, can easily be in the tippy top here if they give tier 4 and some those special stats that everyone wants for PvP. Misty Knight is mostly just going to be a leadership, but she is kind of outdated. MODOK is going to be low mid. Has burst damage like some of these other characters, especially because he opens with his 5th, I think, and it affects the whole area, so he can take out some big characters, but won't really do too much else besides that. You can use him to take out defenders and things like that. Molecule Man is going to be support. One of the top supports here, but whatever, like, you can figure this out. Everyone wants support, so just get all of these in here. This character would need more. Isn't necessarily outdated, has some decent stuff, but just needs more. Low mid can do some interesting things with characters targeting the dinosaur, and yeah, just doesn't really have enough to push her a little bit further. Moon Knight would fall probably in the mid category. You can get guard break immunity natively, or in his kit natively, so you can build him with pretty much anything. He has some decent iframes. You pair him with characters like Blade and Gwenpool, he can do some decent things at the mid level. Or really won't do anything too much further than that. And again, because he's tier 4, he has an advantage over some of these other characters. This character, Moonstone, is likely... with a destruction, I used to use her to take out some pretty big teams back in the day. So I want to put her at the mid level, and I'm pretty sure with... She's gonna get an upgrade at some point, but yeah, she has some pretty good burst damage, can hide in some iframes. You can easily argue between low, mid, and mid. Oh yeah, and I pair Moon Knight with Blade and stuff because he has the Weapon Master tag. All three of those characters do. This one probably low mid. Just yeah, I almost want to put him in missing something, but he's somewhat decent. Just really needs a little bit either more offense or survivability. It's just at the low end of the mid range, but doesn't really fall in the same category as the people that are missing something to have some kind of relevance. Morgan Le Fay is going to be support for the most part. Mysterio is going to be support, though I would say that this character kind of falls into the high mid level because of his survivability. But I'm not sure whether to put him into support or kind of the mid. I'll just mention that now. I'll put him into support. I'll put him kind of in the higher end for support, sort of like Beast. These characters are really good even by themselves because they have very good survivability, but because they offer that support capability, you're probably going to be looking to pair them and not just use them as is. Mystique is support. Wasp has some support capabilities, kind of outdated. This one, yeah, low mid. I kind of want to put him into even worse than that because they haven't really done this character justice. The Namors didn't really have too much time in the PvE meta and then kind of fell off there, and then in PvP he didn't really have much value. I'd say that Nebula is probably in the low mid as well. Has some kind of burst-like damage, sort of. Doesn't really have too much else going for her. She's not bad enough to put under this. And Negasonic needs something more. She doesn't really have enough to be used. And then Nick Fury is definitely one of the... He's actually a pretty good support in Alliance Conquest because you have the incapacitation immunity that you can apply to superhero characters. So that means that opponents can't take out your kind of abilities. So you might want to actually consider how you pair Nick Fury, not just for his offensive capabilities to your team. This character is not good. I want to say that Nightcrawler's been shafted pretty bad, so he is missing something. He kind of needs, you can argue low mid, but I'll put him in low mid for now, but just because Morbius is on this level, so he really needs more. Better uniform, better upgrade. Just do something with Nightcrawler if the devs are watching, for God's sake. Nova, he was very good back in the day as a standalone character, but mostly just support now. He has Eye from Ignore, so he needs an upgrade. Him and Sam Alexander, which I'm not sure is, I'll get to him later. Odin is going to be probably in the high mid level. He doesn't have Eye from Ignore or Penetration, I believe, but he does have some pretty good burst damage, or maybe not that. I'll put him here. He's sort of on the same level as Gladiator to an extent. Gladiator is much better because he has super guard break on his skills, but Odin can do some pretty funky things, especially with his artifact boosting up his damage to supervillains. Okoye, I haven't really tested this character, but I would say she's low mid at best. If someone can argue other than that, then I could push her higher. She can probably be up here, maybe. But Omega Red has some pretty good abilities, has some good base health. Probably deserves to be in mid. Phil Coulson, support. Very good support. Kind of slept on with the latest uniform since he can buff up the damage reduction and damage reduction versus supervillains as well. So you can, depending on where you use him, you can really kind of make your team tanky. Phylavel needs an upgrade, would be awesome by now, but she is a support and has reflect, so would be fun to use her higher level, but not currently. Polaris, I would say, is kind of high mid. She has a similar kind of, she is support as well, so do I put her into support? I'll mention this. She kind of belongs either in high mid or mid. She can take out some pretty strong teams, especially because of her passives. But I'll put her kind of at this level with Beast, Mysterio. It just kind of falls like at this same level here. Very good as standalones and good support capabilities. Low mid? I guess you could argue mid-level for this character. No, I'll put him in low mid. He has a good... okay, I'll put him in mid for the reason... I'm kind of just arguing with myself here. I'm putting Professor X in mid because he has really good CC effects. He doesn't have great survivability. He doesn't really have great offensive capabilities. But if you fight, again, characters at the kind of this level, they don't necessarily have debuff cleanse, so he'll lock them down. Proxima is a support at this point. Kind of around this same level here. Psylocke probably here, arguably here, but is mostly just for the burst damage. So I kind of want to just say like this kind of level here. Like this kind of level here. Some of these characters have a little bit better survivability, but these two are arguable. I think there should be two categories down there in low mid. There are many characters like that really don't cut it. Yeah, I mean like characters under like this level, like under mid, is just kind of, yeah, like if you're focusing on AC characters, you're just gonna be focusing up to like mid at best, and then here it just kind of gets wishy-washy. You're not even really going to be getting to these characters most often because most fights now with the 1 hour kind of limit will mostly just focus these top characters for the most part. So, I mean, like, this isn't kind of the B-end or whatever the hell the saying is. Like, this isn't the list that you, if you read this, this is like your Bible for AC. If some characters are close, you can easily just build them. But it's just to give you an idea. Punisher... Sorry, I'm kind of going on a tangent here. Punisher is high mid, has Eye from Ignore, has decent burst damage, survivability. This character is low mid, has self debuff removal, universal type, so she has a type advantage. You can pair her with pretty much any character, but with so many other strong characters now, might be lacking a little bit. Quicksilver is in the top meta, I would argue. Where do I want to put these? Yeah, I want to say he's in the top meta. His survivability is better than some of these other characters if you really built him up, especially with things like Invincible and the Artifact. He can survive and be pretty annoying versus some characters, some of these other ones. I guess the main distinction between him and Invisible Woman would be that she doesn't have Eye from Ignore, so he performs at a higher level than she does. But I think this is a fair assessment. Let's see, Rachel. is high mid. This list is getting pretty chunky here. Yeah. If you've played Otherworld Battle, you know why she's here. She provides the leadership versus Phoenix characters and stuff. But for the most part, she's going to be that awakening bomb that just nukes everyone, similar to how Corvus does. Red Guardian, low mid at best, kind of needs a little bit more. Does decent, doesn't really do anything too special. You can sort of argue that he can be at this level to some extent, but yeah, again, some of these get a little bit wishy-washy here. This character needs an upgrade, and we'll get one soon. This is a top support, provides HP leadership, and damage reduction of 10% that people forget about, so she's actually a pretty good support. Red Skull is low mid, decent burst damage versus superhero characters, not really too much else going for him. Rescue is mid, she has good survivability, provides survivability to her team with that healing ability, but her offensive capabilities are pretty limited. Rhino is outdated. Ghost Rider Robbie Reyes is going to be a support for Ghost Rider, but if you were to take this character standalone, I would say that he is high mid, because he just constantly hides in iframes and things like that. Let me see how quickly I can get through the rest of this. Rocket Raccoon, low mid at best, isn't really necessarily outdated, but could use an upgrade. Rogue, mid-level. She has good iframes, good AoE effects, some decent damage, but survivability isn't that great, and at one point she did have Reflect. Not sure if I don't think she has a Reflect with her latest uniform, but yeah, just kind of mid. Ronin, support for universal types. Sabretooth, I guess you could argue high mid, but I really don't like this character. His damage is horrible. He's mostly there just to kind of CC characters for the most part, and because he has iframe ignore, can just constantly be annoying with them, but I don't think he's really that good offensively, even if you build him with an offensive build. Nova is probably going to be somewhere in the kind of low mid area, because he has that super guard break lockdown. He has iframe ignore. I guess you could argue that he can be here, but he's kind of like with Baron, where he has that iframe ignore. He also has the super guard break immunity, or the super guard break penetration, but just kind of dies a little bit easily. So yeah, I'm not sure. I guess you could argue that you could put him up here, especially because he's a universal type, so maybe here, just because he has a little bit more going for him. He has also that awakening and stuff. Yeah. Sandman is outdated. Zatanna is a support. Chasm is a support, though he does have iframe ignore, so you could potentially put him in the mid-level. His abilities and effects aren't really that great, so I don't think he goes as high as high mid, but yeah. Scarlet Witch is mid-level, similar to Cable, can catch opponents off guard on the second set with her CC effects and her burst damage. Scorpion is low mid. He kind of needs more, but he does somewhat decently. Scream is probably at the same level. Nimrod or Sentinel needs more. He has the debuff leadership, but let's see. Yeah, I'd say he needs more at this point. By himself, he doesn't really do anything. He's just that debuff leadership. So, I mean, he does some stuff versus mutant characters, but most of them are much stronger than him now. So he really does need kind of an upgrade. He's probably at the very highest end of missing something. Sentry is outdated. Let's see. Sentry is right here at the top with the wall meta, just under null. Cersei is high mid, similar to Rachel, just an explosive bomb. You can also put her into support, but maybe I should do that. I'll put her somewhere around here. No, I'll actually put her here. I'll leave her here. I know she's support. Most people aren't really using her to support Eternals anymore. They're just using her to kind of awaken bomb characters. Um, this character is support for Warriors of the Sky. Shang-Chi is a reflect eye from ignore character, high mid. Agent 13 outdated. This character burst, not really much else. You can, I guess, argue mid-level. She-Hulk isn't really support, but, well, I mean, she's support with her artifact. She's kind of support leadership with her leadership. That didn't make any sense. Yeah, this is actually, I would put her in this kind of level here because she can't be countered by Molecule Man. So if you have a character that's self-debuff removes, or you have a passive that does that, you can run She-Hulk, and versus male characters, she can't be countered. Shuri, support. One of the top supports like M'Baku versus villain characters. Sif is just support, but I think this is only for... You can put her in low mid because the support is only for boss characters, so that's not going to do anything in Alliance Conquest. Silk, I would say, is at the very low end of high mid, if that makes any sense. She has Eye from Ignore. Can be tricky with the spider characters on the same team, and with her kind of avoiding damage. Let's speed this up. God, this is taking a lot longer than I thought. Silver Surfer is going to be arguably at this level, probably a little bit ahead of Adam, yeah, because of Agent Venom support now, and because of that team up collection passive, he's much stronger, so he's probably at that level. You should be well aware of some of these characters being at this level. I don't really have to explain them too much. They're kind of in the meta and very powerful. Sin is going to be mostly support, but because that only applies to... does it apply to villain characters? I think it's only bosses. So she's either support or low mid. I'll put her support. Because I think her artifact also affects villain characters. But she, I'll put her here for now. I have tested her with Destruction. She hides in a lot of iframes, so she's actually pretty decent for burst damage. So she's somewhere around this level kind of thing. Outdated support character for magic types, provides debuff removal. This character is somewhat decent, not decent enough to be worth any kind of contention there. Slapstick needs more, similar to Nimrod. These are kind of the top characters of this end. You can use them for... you can use Slapstick to delay fights because of his revival, and Nimrod to get that debuff removal. But these two characters can easily be argued as the low mid level. Sleeper is going to be support, though if he wasn't support, I would probably put him in the kind of the higher end of mid level. He sort of is like Invisible Woman in terms of his survivability. So if you don't decide to build him with a support, then you can easily put him somewhere in the kind of mid level area in terms of his effects. But yeah, I'll put him into support for now, kind of like this level area here. Songbird's outdated. Spectrum is kind of mid-level because she provides effects versus energy types, so she has a benefit to those characters. Spider-Gwen is actually a meta buster. I regularly use her to take out characters like Madeline Pryor or Goblin Queen. With her artifact and those iframes and a good team, she can take out some pretty strong characters. She doesn't really have as great of survivability as some other characters, but that's where I'd put her. Spider-Man is at this level better survivability than Spider-Gwen. Similar sort of survivability to Quicksilver, probably a little bit better, especially when you pair her or pair him with Agent Venom. Or the spider characters that boost up those characters back and forth. 29.9 is mid-level. He has good burst damage if you build him that way, and hides in iframes, so you can be really annoying, especially with CC effects, and they don't have debuff removal. Probably the same thing with this character, though you can probably put her in support as well, but she actually does quite decent at the mid-level too. Spot is definitely at the high mid-level. I use him to take out some pretty strong characters at this level. Usually I pair him with Dormammu, Mephisto, and because they have the reflect, iframe ignore, revives, and stuff like that, and Spot can clean up. Be nice if he gets an upgrade with the next Spider-Verse movie. Squirrel Girl. I'm getting tired here. Squirrel Girl is the low mid-level. Can argue kind of the mid-level, but it's kind of getting like a wash here. Mid-level burst damage, iframes, storm support for the most part. You can pair her with Thor. You can pair her with Beta Ray Bill, other characters that do electric damage. Strife is Meta Buster. He can take out some of these characters and has somewhat decent survivability. Something like this. Wait. Has somewhat good survivability, good burst damage, iframe ignore. The artifact's good too. Sunbird is gonna be, where did I put support for Warriors of the Sky. This one, what's this character's name again? Supergiant. Supergiant falls in this category as well. Has iframe ignore. Could be better, but yeah, I think she has built-in penetration as well. Like, if I remember correctly, it's like 33% or some weird number. But yeah, her survivability isn't that great, but she has decent kind of opening burst kind of damage with the iframe ignore, and provides the debuff leadership to your team. Sword Master is low mid at best. Sylvie is kind of mid-level. Universal type. She has good CC effects, hides in iframes. She's better than some of these other characters here. Taskmaster is support. Thane is a good mid-level character, debuff leadership, hides in iframes to some extent, decent kind of AoE effects. Whew. Okay, almost at the end here. Thanos. I want to say that he is a wall meta, but can also be in the top meta. This is kind of one that is shifting right now, and probably already shifted to the top meta, but yeah, a good Thanos with some decent characters can be quite annoying, so he can somewhat hold his own, but yeah, this is kind of a tricky one. I'm not really too sure about this one. Kind of want to say he's kind of dropped down one level below, so maybe something like this. I think this would be a fair assessment, right? Because this character has revive, immortality, and then Thanos doesn't have that. And some of these other characters have pseudo immortality, revives, and stuff. So I think this is a fair assessment now. Though, yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of like Thanos. I want to put him up here, but I think for most part, Thanos is going to perform at this level for most people. Athena is kind of a little bit of a sleeper in the mid-level, because she hides in iframes and goes into her burst damage. Thing is support, doesn't really perform that great. Thor is kind of mid-level, similar to Loki. He can hide in iframes, do some big burst damage, and similar to Iron Man and Cable, Scarlet Witch, and stuff like that. So like these characters, this kind of bunching here of characters. This doesn't represent the best to the worst from left to right. It's just kind of they're on the same level. I try to organize them a little bit, I guess, but it's, yeah, didn't really work. This character is going to be mid-level. Doesn't really have the best kit. She does have Eye from Ignore, but I don't think that I can put her in the high mid-level. She doesn't really do anything too crazy, I would say. I've never really seen her kind of pop off, or whatever you want to call it. And like, I've put some other characters here that I have Eye from Ignore into lower classes as well. It just depends on the performance that I've seen. Toxin, I would easily say, is in the high mid level. It's very unfortunate he didn't get a uniform. He's a very good character. I usually paired him with Agent Venom and Carnage before all those upgrades, and he would easily survive. Just had a great kit. Still does have a great kit, just needs kind of more upgrades, but still holds his own at the high mid level. Needs is updated. Ultron is kind of the higher end of mid-level. Yeah, probably the highest I can put him is kind of the mid-level. The artifact needs to trigger for him to get that Eye from Ignore, but yeah, some of these other characters can do a little bit more than him. But yeah, it's kind of debatable there. This character is somewhat support, somewhat useless. Valeria is somewhat support, somewhat leadership. At best, you could put her low mid if you don't put her in that category. Valkyrie is actually quite good, and I would put her, if I didn't put her as support, which I will put her as support, I'd probably put her, like, I would definitely put her somewhere in the high mid category. She opens with an Eye from Ignore and locks down the opponent right away. Has high burst damage, especially if you build with a CTP of Destruction. So I'd put her here normally, but most people are going to use her for support, so I'll put her at this level around here. Venom now will probably be mid-level, similar to this bunching here again. These characters here being tier 4, not having the other abilities. Victorious is going to be support. One of the supports that fall somewhere in this category with these characters, very kind of good by themselves as well for the level that they're at. Viper needs a little bit more. She doesn't really have quite enough, but she is kind of arguably at this same kind of comparison with Scorpion, but Scorpion has an upgrade and she doesn't, so she needs a little bit more. Vision is going to be kind of on the lower, not in the mid-level. I previously put him here because he has reflect capabilities, but he just doesn't really do that well with all these other characters upgraded, so I would say that he's probably more in this range now than some of these other characters, because I don't think he hides in too many iframes either. This character is actually support, and is very unfortunate he hasn't gotten an upgrade because he has pretty much the Colossus support. He has 20% damage reduction versus everyone, but only applies to superheroes. So if he got an upgrade, he would basically be the Colossus for superheroes only. So this character's kind of slept on. If you slap an insight on this character and throw him on a decent kind of team, you can really boost them up. Vulture needs more. He's not necessarily outdated, has decent iframes, but would need more to be able to go further. War Machine is mid-level, hides in iframes, decent burst damage, support capabilities, but I guess most people will use him as a support, so probably somewhere around this level here. Yeah. This character needs something. It's kind of outdated. Wait, War Tiger or White Tiger, I think it's War Tiger, is the high mid-level area. Has Eye from Ignore, has healing. I'm pretty sure he has penetration, and if you really want to go crazy, you can pair him with the kind of awakening skills, but it would be kind of a waste. Regardless, as a standalone combat type, he is good enough to put in the high mid-level. This character is support. Wasp is support, though she does decent at the mid-level, not enough to go to the high mid because she doesn't have Eye from Ignore. Wave is support. Hex is this level, probably around here. So Yeah, she is mostly going to be used. She's mostly going to be support, but she is also very good standalone, and most people are going to. Yeah, this is kind of arguable, but like, if you get her to tier 4, you're going to use her as to basically kind of take out some of the top meta characters. So yeah, you could argue that she belongs in support, but I'd prefer not to put too many tier 4 characters there, especially. Yeah. I mean, in a zombie team, it's just going to be Captain America and Weapon Hex. So if she'll more than likely end up dying, but these two are pretty much the only ones that are going to hold that team together. With Agent Venom, he's just going to be mostly support for the other characters. You don't really care whether he lives or dies too much. These two characters you do, so that's probably why she belongs in top meta. Quasar is good. He probably belongs in this level, I want to say, with his with the effects that he provides. Probably this level or one level below. But I think he's pretty good, even without a uniform. I don't think he has a uniform. Yeah, he's pretty good. This character is actually pretty good as well. Probably on the higher end. I usually pair Wenwu with Hulk and Red She-Hulk, and he frequently survives in teams I fight, where I fight meta characters. I've seen him take out Hela even, with his kind of hiding in iframes, having penetration, having good burst damage. So yeah, maybe Quasar. Maybe I should put him. I kind of want to do this. I think this is more fair. This character has good survivability. This character has good survivability and damage too, and can kind of put up a fight versus some of these other characters. Maybe not to the same extent. Maybe they deserve to be one level below. But yeah, I'll leave them here for now just because they also have very good leaderships and support capabilities to your team. So you do want to prioritize them over some of these other characters. Whiplash is at the top here. Yeah, I don't know why this character's in the game. For those Whiplash fans, it's your own fault. I don't know what's. White Tiger's outdated. I think she's gonna get an upgrade with the Daredevil show or something. I think she's featured in that. Wakan needs an upgrade. He's not absolutely horrible, but he has some kind of support effects and kind of AoE and things, but needs more. Just yeah, you're not really gonna use him to fight, but yeah, that's kind of where he would fall. And then I would have to put Winter Soldier here, even though he is kind of not too great with his survival. He does have iframe ignore and I believe penetration. So, or maybe he doesn't have penetration. I don't remember. I have a CTP of destruction on him, so I still think that he'd probably fall into this level because you can burst down some characters fairly quickly. Wolverine, no surprise, is still at the top with these characters. You can argue between Silver Surfer and kind of this pairing, how you want to put them. But these characters here are pretty much representative of the characters that you want to get for Alliance Conquest, no doubt. Wong. Wong is in the high mid level as well. He kind of got overshadowed by the other zombie characters for the pairing, where you run Weapon Hex, Falcon, and Captain America, because Captain America is the star of that team. But if you run Wong with Ancient One and Baron Mordo somewhere here, where is he? Where did I put him? Somewhere here. I'm kind of not. Oh, right here. This team, I usually run with Wong, Ancient One, Baron Mordo, who is pretty good reflect counter for the bottom of a team or something like that, or just to counter some to reflect damage. He has iframe ignore. He has decent iframes that he hides in, so he's actually kind of slept on a little bit, but not. He's not crazy, so you don't have to rush getting him or whatever. He can perform at level 80. But yeah, I think he got overshadowed a little bit. He's not really that bad. He's kind of decent. X23 is probably at the same kind of level. I would almost argue that she is probably at this level. I don't have her tier 4, but I think she falls somewhere in this level in terms of survivability and being able to actually burst down some characters, because she has very good offensive capabilities and very decent survivability with her artifact, and if you build her that way. So I kind of want to put her here. She doesn't have iframe ignore, but is kind of on the same level of survivability as Invisible Woman to some extent. She has a kind of pseudo immortality effect. She has the immortality effect. So yeah, just a little bit better, I would say. I'm not sure. And you compare her with mutant characters like Apocalypse and stuff like that. So I kind of want to put her at that level. I'm going to be tier 4ing her soon, so I'll know for sure. But probably anywhere in this level here if you're still wondering where she would fall. Yelena is mid-level at best, has iframe ignored, doesn't really have much offensive capabilities, like offensive hit. So she definitely kind of needs an upgrade, but is quite good. And where is, yeah, somewhere like around this level with Nova. She has good survivability, not too much good offense, if that's proper English. She would be quite good, probably somewhere around Black Widow's level if she got an upgrade, and probably a decent artifact. This character needs more, and this character is support. And that kind of, that pretty much wraps up what the tier list kind of looks like, in my opinion, for Alliance Conquest currently. I'm pretty sure those are all of the characters. The list is a little bit chunky around the middle here, but yeah. For the most part, focus these characters, focus the high, mid, and mid characters after that, and you should be fine. These other characters are kind of, if you want to, if you're really into Alliance Conquest, you batch on low, mid on top of that, and then, yeah, definitely take into consideration that supports are kind of very high value with most of the meta characters right now. So if you build up these characters and the high mid, take a look at the support level here, because a lot of these characters are going to be quite useful and probably essential to building up some top teams. You can kind of figure out which ones aren't as good because they don't have uniforms or they're kind of older, but yeah, just look at these. Definitely get null, get the wall metas, get top metas, meta busters, high mid characters. Look at supports and get some of the ones that you think will help out the teams up here. Then consider some of the characters for mid and low mid. I think these, you won't really use these characters as much. You'll probably use them at the start of Alliance Conquest, and probably if you're fighting some teams that failed, then you want to use these characters to clean them up, or probably put them on the second team or something to fill out a team. But that's basically what it's going to look like. Okay. I was going to do a second tier list here for the CTPs. And I don't want to run through these at the same level that I did the character tier list, because I don't think you really need that much details for these. But because people kind of want to know where to allocate the CTPs, I think I should just run through this fairly quickly. As quick as I can. So, before I pass out, because I need... I've been streaming for quite a bit now. Let me just put these characters down here quickly. So... where's this? Liberation. You're probably going to pair this with some other kind of character that has support. I'm actually going to open my... trying to remember. These are the builds that I have, but you can vary them. I put regen because you can reflect more. Adam Warlock, I have a CTP of Greed. You can easily put him with the CTP of Conquest. I prefer CTP of Greed just because I like him to be more burst damage, especially when I'm using him in Timeline. Let me double check here. Let me open the game and see what I have on these characters very quickly, just to, just so I don't mess up putting some of these characters in weird positions. I think I have a CTP of regen on Arrow. She has a self debuff, and for characters that don't have iframe ignore, I usually put a regen on them so that they can knock characters out of their skills and they have a better chance of doing something. Would help characters like Absorbing Main, for example, to deal reflect damage. This, I previously had a brilliant CTP of regen. I'm putting him with Liberation now because Null and Carnage rolled by and he just ends up dying most times, so just boost up Null, Carnage, Silver Surfer, and other characters. So CTP of Liberation, this character doesn't really matter. I have a CTP of Destruction. You can run a CTP of Insight or a Liberation for this character because she does good standalone, so CTP of Liberation is probably ideal. I personally have a brilliant CTP of regen. I would probably put her here, but yeah, I'm just telling you that now so you don't necessarily have to copy my builds. This is just what I have built, where I have my CTPs and probably where you might want to consider putting yours. Ancient One, CTP of Authority. You want her to live longer, reflect more damage. You can obviously put Support CTP because she also is support. Similarly for Angel, you can put him for Insight or Liberation. I have a CTP of Regen because he's decent standalone. You want to knock them out of the iframes. Angela, I believe I have a CTP of Authority on this character. Let me double check what I have. Yeah, I have a CTP of Authority on her. She has self debuff removal. She does somewhat decently. CTP of Conquest on Anti-Man. The most ideal one that I tested and the one that I would recommend over the all the other ones. I have a CTP of Destruction on Ant-Man. He hides in iframes and can do burst damage. Apocalypse, I have a Conquest. You can run an Authority on Apocalypse and it works just as well, I've found. This is just what I've preferred from my testing. I think the other options for him are... Yeah, I think those are kind of the two most ideal options for him. I don't remember. I think I have a regen on this character. So he hides in iframes. You can knock characters out of their iframes. Has CC effects. I believe I have Authority for more reflect damage. I have a CTP of Greed. I have a CTP of Greed for the reason I mentioned previously for the other thing. He opens with his iframe ignore skill and you can burst them down, especially if their CC effects have been, or debuff effects have been kind of burned out. I have a CTP of Liberation on Beast. You can also run something like an Authority and make him very annoying, but oftentimes I'm pairing him for support capabilities. I have Destruction. I want to trigger that iframe ignore artifact, and then he can burst them down with penetration. And then this is support. I'm also going to mention these for the most part if you're an Alliance Conquest built player, where you might want to put your PvE CTPs. So this is Insight, boost up ABX, ABL stuff. Black Panther, I have a CTP of Rage. You can probably run something else for Alliance Conquest, but I'm just a fan of playing him in PvE. Black Widow, I have a CTP of Greed. You can run other things like an Authority on her, or even something like a Destruction, or Regen, maybe, something like that. But I have Greed. I like her quick burst damage to take out opponents, and I believe she has built-in penetration with her passive effects. Ares, I have Destruction. Yeah, I have Destruction. Kind of does iframes, so burst damage. Similarly with Blade, iframe goes into iframes. You want burst damage, penetration. Both these characters don't have that. I have Destruction for her, so when she awakens, she does penetrate. She kind of penetrates the opponent. I believe she has penetration in her kit, but you have to. Not entirely sure. I think she does, but you need to activate the counter effect or whatever it is. I don't remember for that penetration to actually apply. So if she doesn't activate that, or doesn't trigger the counter portion, I think, the penetration doesn't apply. That's why I have it on her. And it works quite well with her burst damage on her skills as well. This character, you can run Liberation or Insight. I have a Regen just to make him more annoying at the mid-level. I have a Rage on Beta Ray Bill for burst damage. You can run things like an Authority or Judgment for the character and make him kind of more suited for Alliance Conquest, but that's pretty much what I have on him. And obviously you can run Insight or Liberation. That's mostly where people are probably going to use him. I just prefer playing him in PvE, so that's why I have him there. This character, I think I have a CTP of Authority. He goes in a bunch of iframes. I want him to survive longer. Let me double check here. Yeah, CTP of Authority. This character, I think I have Destruction. I want Penetration. He goes into iframes. This, I think I have a Rage from before, but I think I might change this now because I don't really use him for PvE that often. But yeah, you can run Energy. Probably you don't really want to run Destruction, but you can run something like an Energy. You can run Rage. He does good burst damage. I have a CTP of Destruction on her. You can run her with an Authority as well to make her tankier. I want her to have more burst damage because I don't really like her survivability. This character, you can run a Regen or a Refinement. I go with Refinement just because I have spare eggs to use. That sounded weird. But yeah, you want to boost the survivability and get more reflect damage. You can go with Authority, but he has passive healing. Insight or Liberation for this character. You can also run Authority. I don't really remember what I have for her. I think I just have an Obelisk, but yeah, I'll just put her there. This character doesn't matter. You want to run probably an Insight or Liberation, likely an Insight, because if someone uses Molecule Man, you're going to lose... well, you're going to lose everything, probably, except for the damage reduction from the top proc of an Insight, if you have a Mighty version. But yeah, for the most part, people run Insight on him, so that if someone wants to counter, they have to fully commit with Molecule Man. Corvus, Destruction, Penetration with the Awakening skill is kind of a nuke. I have Conquest on her. You can run her with Greed if you want her to do more proc damage. You can also run her with something like an Authority as well. But I kind of prefer Conquest because of her healing and the passive effect that she has. Insight for Cyclops. Because of support capabilities, this character doesn't really matter. CTP of Regen is what I previously ran for this character and what I currently have for him. He has a bunch of healing, hides in iframes. He does have iframe ignore, so I guess you could run something else, but that's currently what I have on him. This character, you probably want to run an Authority for the reflect, but I don't think I have anything that crazy on him. Ooh, I didn't include a CTP of Patience here. I think I'm running a CTP of Patience. Maybe I should include that in the list. Yeah, let's just say something like an Authority. But yeah, maybe can I add a list here? Let's see. Oops. Add a row below. Let's go with, let's add them here. Transcendence. Oh. How am I spelling this? Where's my mouse? Okay, there it is. Okay, then I want this color to be this blue, and then this is Patience, which is what you guys all have watching me do this. And let's make this kind of what color is Patience? Like green or something? I guess we're doing multiple greens here. So yeah, so let me put this here. I have this on him. You can run him with Transcendence, Authority. You just want him to get some invincible and additional survivability. This character doesn't really matter. Captain America, you can run Authority or Conquest. I find are the most ideal for him. You can easily make a CTP of Regen or a CTP of Refinement work. I just preferred the Authority. Carnage. This is a character I haven't really fully tested yet. I think because of his offensive capabilities now, he would fall between Conquest and Refinement. But you can put him in Greed as well if you pair him with good supports to increase his survivability. I think I'm currently running him with Greed, but probably gonna say refinement because he has guard break immunity. That's probably what I'm gonna test since I have a perfect, brilliant refinement on him. Okay. I don't know. You can run authority. Doesn't really matter if this character. I run authority on her. You can run a refinement, but I find she doesn't have too many iframes or invincible, so I prefer to have invincible on her. I think I have invincible on her just to make her survive longer, be more annoying. She has iframes, so it just makes her kind of more consistent. Let me double check that I actually have that. If I'm running that on the character. One sec. Okay, well, yeah, I think I'm running that on her. I can't really find it. Regen is what I have on Drax, just to knock opponents out of their iframes, because he has passive healing. Pretty sure, I don't remember exactly, or maybe he has active healing. You want to boost that up further. CTP of Regen for the similar reasons, knock opponents out of their iframes, although she does have iframe ignore. Also boosts up her healing and active healing. Similar thing here as well for Elektra. Similar for Electro. Though you can probably run him with Judgment too if you want more burst damage or something. And she spams, I think, skills with these characters spam skills with healing on them, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, some of these characters I don't think are really worth CTPs, so I'll just kind of put them. Maybe I should put here. So it's just, you can kind of put whatever you want on these characters. I'll just, yeah, maybe, yeah, I'll just limit it to the characters that are kind of like more, that are stronger. I have an authority on her. You can run, I believe, Regen or some other kind of survivability CTP. I find authority works best. Insight for him, boost up support characters. Greed for him, his eye from ignore, he has penetration. Insight for PvE stuff, doesn't really matter. Conquest I find works the most effective here. You can use other CTPs like Greed and stuff, but Conquest I think does much better from what I've seen all around. Doesn't really matter. You can use a CTP of Energy on him to get more burst damage and have fun with him in PvE. CTP of Authority works best for Doom. You can run some other CTPs. That's the one that I found is most effective for him. You can put an Insight on this character to boost up these machine characters or whatever. Authority for her, or if you run her in PvE, I'm pretty sure you can just slap a CTP of Rage on her. But for Alliance Conquest stuff, you can run that. Rage is what I use because of ABL stuff. If you don't really use him for that, then you can just put on like an Authority or CTP of Destruction or something. CTP of Regen for the healing and his massive HP pool. You can also run a CTP of Conquest, but I find that his survivability is not like crazy to kind of warrant that. I tried a Conquest that wasn't really that much of a difference, so that's why I still run Regen. You can do whatever though. You can try either one. CTP of Rage, he's amazing for PvE. Otherwise, you can run an Authority and make him annoying with Reflect and stuff like that. Doesn't really matter. Dormammu, I have a CTP of Regen. Just to... You can run Authority. It's probably better to run Authority on him, but that's kind of what I have. CTP of Authority for him. Want to stack up that Steel effect, so he gets the Pseudo Immortality. Insight for Red Goblin. You would probably want to put something like a CTP of Liberation on this character. He does well standalone as well. But I have a Conquest on him for now because I think he is a little bit of a sleeper character and can survive certain situations, even versus some of these strong characters. I believe I have a CTP of Authority on Groot, just to stall opponents a little bit more. I have a CTP of Conquest on Echo. You can also run something like a Greed, I guess, just because she kind of iframes a lot. So if you want to have more offensive potential. I don't remember if she has penetration or not, but I guess you could also argue a CTP of Destruction. Conquest is what I prefer. CTP of Conquest on him, but he isn't really worth the Conquest if you don't have that many, so you probably run something like a CTP of Regen or CTP of Authority if you want him for more survivability. Yeah, I don't remember if Destruction works for him. His penetration is kind of might overwrite that. Authority, though, you can also do Transcendence with him. You want to survive long enough for the iframe ignore to happen. You can run Destruction on her. I prefer to run a CTP of Regen to assist my other characters, but yeah, you can definitely run a Destruction, and it works very well for a lot of people. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter. CTP of Rage for PvE stuff, or Insight if you want to boost up your other characters. CTP of Destruction, what I run with her. She iframes a lot, so you want to burst them down when they can't attack you and they're just sitting there. You can also run support CTPs on her. Probably a Liberation works well for him, though, because he gets the mortal effect when you run with Captain America and Weapon Hex. I run him with CTP of Regen so that he can interrupt the opponents. For the same reason, I run a CTP of Regen on him, though you can probably run an Insight or Liberation if you want to use him as pure support and you don't have the Immortal artifact for him. CTP of Greed is what I use for Ghost Rider. People probably use a Rage for PvE or even a CTP of Judgment and try to get the best of both worlds. CTP of Insight for Ghost Rider or Ghost Panther. This character doesn't matter. Gladiator for Alliance Conquest, I run a CTP of Regen to knock them out of their iframes so that you can actually hit them. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend things like necessarily an Authority or Refinement, because you want that guard break immunity, and I guess you could run an Authority to some extent, but yeah, generally for characters that don't have iframe ignore, I run Regen just to get that iframe, that penetration that they call it, to knock opponents out of their skills. This character doesn't really matter. Most of these characters you can probably run Authority or Destruction, just to put it out there, or Transcendence or Patience. Doesn't really matter. I run Authority for her. She does quite well, similar to Gamora. She can deal some pretty good damage and has decent survivability. I've taken out some characters like Madeline with her. I have a CTP of Destruction on him. He has a kind of damage reduction bubble or damage immunity bubble or something like that he opens with, so he gains the survivability there, and then has lingering AoE effects for the damage to pop off with the Destruction, penetration, and the damage proc. Here you can run him with a Regen or a Refinement to some extent, but I've recently switched to a Conquest and found that it is more reliable. I've regularly used him to counter Thanos, Hela, and whatever other meta they have, just by running Hulk with Red She-Hulk and what's that character's name? Wenwu. Hulkbuster isn't really worth anything else besides a Regen, in my opinion. That's what I run on him, just to boost up his survivability and potentially keep him long enough to awaken. Use the awakening skill. Character doesn't really matter. You want to probably run a Judgment for him, just because he's probably more for PvE. This character doesn't really matter too much. Hyperion, I run a Regen. Has survivability, has iframe ignore, but yeah, I guess you could argue you can run something like proc or whatever, but that's basically what I have on him because I accumulated so many CTPs of Regen when it first came out. CTP of Judgment for him most likely does try to increase his damage so that he can activate proc and deal a lot of damage quickly to take out the opponent. CTP of Regen here kind of lingers in iframes, builds up that penetration proc to help out the other characters, also boosts up his survivability. You can also run Authority for Icarus, similar with Hyperion, I guess. I'm pretty sure I have a CTP Authority for Icon. Let me double check here. Still checking. Where are these characters on these lists? Yeah, okay, yeah, I do have a CTP of Authority for the same reasons as Ancient One and Baron Mordo for the extra reflect. This character doesn't matter. CTP of Authority. Because she has high damage reduction, she hides in a lot of iframes. You can keep her alive. You want to keep her alive long enough to go into her tier 4. That's where her offensive capabilities are going to come. Destruction for him you want to go instantly into high burst damage skills and penetration. I guess CTP of Authority, but doesn't really matter too much like the other characters. Probably just put him down here for now. Support, so CTP of Insight. Probably a CTP of Destruction if you want to use him for Alliance Conquest. I have a CTP of Rage on him currently. But yeah, probably go with Destruction for him and Doc Ock if you want to run them for Alliance Conquest. This, I don't remember. I think I have a CTP of Energy for her just for fun or whatever for the burst damage. And if you want to utilize some of the CTPs of Energy, you probably more ideally want to run her with CTP of Destruction though. If you want to use her for Alliance Conquest. Jean, most people are going to use her for PvE now, but I prefer Authority on the character. People also run her with Greed. My preference is Authority with her. She seems to do better for me. I can keep her alive longer to either CC the opponent with certain characters or kind of live long enough to activate that reflect from the tier 4 skill. But yeah, some people prefer Greed on her for the most part in PvP, I guess, or potentially Refinement since her healing is based off. She doesn't really have passive healing, so they want to boost that up further. So those are kind of your options. I run Authority just for the extra reflect. You can put Insight on her or CTP of Liberation if you want to get combos of Insight and Liberation on certain teams. I have Destruction for her for quick iframes and penetration. CTP of Regen to keep Juggernaut alive long enough to go into his Awakening skill. Doesn't really matter. CTP of Insight, though you can argue a CTP of Liberation depending on which supports you pair together. I think I have a CTP of Energy on her, just again to utilize some of this, but you probably want to run Destruction. Let me double check actually. I might be running Destruction on her. Oh yeah, I am running Destruction on her, but yeah, you can run her with Energy as well if you want to use some of those. I guess use some of those up. This would be similar to Gore. Get the Steel effect up. So you want to run him with an Authority. Doesn't really matter. CTP of Authority so that she can activate her iframe Ignore artifact and get some more damage out there. Doesn't really matter. Probably an Energy or Destruction or Judgment. I'll put him here, I guess. I don't really use this character too often. Doesn't really matter. CTP of Authority so that he can kind of be annoying and put a lot of lingering damage on the field. I believe a CTP of Regen just because he has high HP. But yeah, you can run other stuff with him. It's not too big a deal. I think a CTP of Insight on her, though I think I am running her with a CTP of, let's see here. I think I'm running her with CTP Authority just to be more annoying, but you could probably run her with CTP of Insight. She iframes a lot. If you watched my video for Null, Conquest is what I prefer for him, but it's largely going to fall between these two, a CTP of Conquest and a CTP of Greed. So if you just watch that video, it kind of explains which one you might prefer on Null. It would largely probably be the same as Sentry, though if you want to, I guess, if you have multiple kind of brilliant selectors or something, and already have one of a CTP, you might want to consider getting that other one to pair them together. Doesn't really matter. Support, so something like an Insight. Doesn't really matter. CTP of Rage for ABX, ABL stuff. CTP of Regen is what I run with the attack and defense at the top, but you can easily run him with a refinement, potentially even an authority. But this is kind of what's worked best for me. That's where I've put him. CTP or Rage for PvE stuff. Judgment, I guess, if you want to use him or use her for Alliance Conquest things. Don't really care about that, but yeah, get those tier 4 materials. Put a Rage on her. Her you can use with a CTP of Refinement. You can use her with a CTP of Greed. That seems to be the more popular options, though I prefer her with a CTP of Authority, similar to Jean. I find that she works better for me in things like Otherworld Battle because I tend to use her a bunch there anyway. She often goes to her tier 4 skill and survives well with the Authority on there. But maybe I'll change that in the future, I don't know. I would recommend an Authority for her, but she's probably not going to live that long anyway, so I switched to a CTP of Greed and doubled down on trying to burst down the opponent very quickly. CTP of Rage for him. If you don't really use him for ABX, ABL stuff, then probably run an Authority or possibly even a Destruction. Run CTP of Greed on her for a quick burst damage and her lockdown. She can take out opponents, potentially trigger both the CTP of Greed effects because she locks them down for so much. It might go on to the next one. Malekith, I have a CTP of Regen. Where did that go? Wait, where did... Oh, I don't know why that dropped there. A CTP of Regen for Malekith for the same reasons as the other stuff. He stays in iframes. You want to build up the top penetration, whatever, and then knock them out of their iframe and deal a whole bunch of damage because of his AoEs and stuff. I think I have a regen on him as well. Let me double check here. Yeah, regen on him. Similar reasons as Luke Cage, Gilgamesh, stuff like that. Characters with high HP and the artifact. Insight for her. She's going to be support, similar to Colossus. Insight for Baku, for ABX, ABL stuff, and for Alliance Conquest. Probably want to put an insight on her too, though I think I have an authority on her from way back. But yeah, she's not really going to be doing much by herself. I have a regen on him. Probably want to switch to the authority. It's likely a better option for him. But it's not going to make too big a difference between these characters anyway. Miles, I recently switched to Judgment. I had an authority on him. You can probably run that for Alliance Conquest, but he's just so powerful in World Boss Legend now that Judgment is probably the right call for if you want to use the CTPs of Judgment in your inventory. CTP of Greed for her. She stays in iframes. You want to do some good burst damage. That's a decent one you can run. You can also do Destruction and some other stuff. CTP of Conquest I found works best for him, though you can also run him with something like an authority. Some people prefer that instead. CTP of Transcendence is what I use for Mr. Sinister. He has guard break immunity built in. He doesn't really have any of the top crazy PvP effects to put him over the top, so I haven't really committed to a better CTP for him. But yeah, you can run him with this. You can run him with a refinement. But if you want to utilize that Transcendence that you have, this is a good option. You can put an insight for her. Doesn't really matter. Destruction is good for him. He opens with a big AoE iframe skill. Deals a lot of damage. Liberation is a top option for him. He'll counter insights, all of the other stuff. So if you run him and put Liberation, you'll basically have a support CTP while the opponent doesn't have a support or support CTP if they're running Insight. Probably Judgment. This character doesn't really matter. I don't think she has support capabilities, so it doesn't really matter. Probably an Energy or Destruction for this character because he has guard break immunity, though you can run him with other stuff like Transcendence and Patience. Doesn't really matter too much. Just use him for fun, I guess. Destruction because she opens with iframe, big damage as well, like MODOK. CTP of Regen because I have so many. He has decent survivability. CTP of Insight, support capabilities. This I actually run with CTP of Authority because, again, I find he's better than just the support. So I run a CTP Authority with him. He does very well for taking out combat characters. This should be a CTP of Insight. I currently have a CTP of Rage because I don't have Gwen pool built up. for PvE, but yeah, probably want to put an insight on her. You can put an insight on her too, but this character doesn't really matter. I'll put it here, just I guess if you have spares. Namor, most ideal with the Judgment now. Previously was run with a Rage, but he's going to be for World Boss Legend for the most part. I run Judgment for her because she has element damage. You can run Destruction if you want. It doesn't really matter. This you can run Liberation or Insight. It's up to you how you want to split how you want to combo these characters together. This doesn't really matter for Nightcrawler. Authority, I guess. Support, so Insight. Odin, I run with CTP of Judgment. If you want to use him for Alliance Conquest, most people I think prefer Authority. I prefer to use him for a bunch of PvE stuff for fun, and he does good burst damage, so I prefer that. Koye, I run, I believe, a CTP of Regen. I don't remember why. I think she has some decent healing activations and stuff like that. Omega Red, CTP of Regen, has high base HP. Insight for Coulson, support your team. Insight for Phyla-Vell, support your team. Because I like using her as... I think she's better than just support. I run her with Authority. Though you can run Insight or Liberation. Probably more so Liberation. If you want to use her as a standalone. I have a CTP of Judgment on him for World Lost Legends stuff, I guess. Just because I have to use that. But maybe I'll switch him to an Authority. This, I probably need to switch to a Liberation for her. Though I'm kind of just waiting for her upgrade. I have her with the CTP of Regen from before. Just using her at the mid-level. That's probably not ideal currently, though. CTP of Rage to use her in ABX, ABL. If you don't care about that, Judgment or Destruction, I guess. CTP of Regen for him, I believe. Combat type with high base HP. We'll want to keep him alive longer, so iframe ignores. CTP of Regen for her. I think she has a bunch of activations for healing. So, yeah, but yeah, probably her. You can run her with an Authority or something like that. I'm not looking at comments, by the way, just because I don't have them open. I'm just, I know people are probably talking, and I'll check that after maybe, but I think this stream has gone on for a pretty long time, so I just want to get through it at this point. So sorry, guys. Okay, him, you can run him with CTP of Greed if you want. I think the CTP of Authority is the most ideal. You want to keep him alive long enough so that he can really lock down the opponents, and he has good burst damage as is anyway. CTP of Destruction is likely the most ideal. I think she has passive. I actually run her with CTP of Authority, to be honest. I'm trying out a brilliant CTP Authority for her, which is kind of for science. But I think most people run her kind of double down with either an Energy, a Greed, or a Destruction, just to really nuke out the opponent. Red Guardian, I have a CTP of Authority, I believe. You can easily run him with Regen as well. This character doesn't really matter. CTP of Insight for her, just to boost up Red, or to boost up Hulk. CTP of Destruction to get some burst damage out of him. You can also run him with an Authority, I guess. CTP of Authority for her. You want to keep her alive as long as possible to heal up your team with the third skill. This character doesn't really matter. CTP of Regen is what I used for him, because he spams his iframe ignore skill with healing, though likely you want to use a Liberation for him now, or a CTP of Insight to boost up your Ghost Rider team, or whatever other team that you pair him with. So that's something I'll probably consider later on when I probably rewatch this video. CTP of Authority is what I run on Rocket, nothing too fancy. CTP of Rage is what I have for this patch. You can run her with Judgment. I think most people run her with Judgment, so you can put her here if you want. Insight for him. You can also use Authority for him. He's pretty good standalone as well. He has a lot of damage reduction, so the Steel proc with his high damage reduction of 50% can get pretty crazy. I don't remember what I run with. I think I went with Conquest for him. Let me double check. I don't really like Sabretooth. They kind of did him dirty in my opinion, but I went with Conquest to get the extra healing and to get the offensive capabilities because it seems like he's lacking everything. CTP of Authority for Nova, so he survives longer, gets more lockdown with his iframe ignore and super guard break penetration. Doesn't really matter. Insight to boost up your elemental characters. You can run an insight for him, though I think let me double check. I think I have a regen on him. No, I have a CTP authority on him. Just because on the Spider team, I don't want everyone to die if they have support stuff and it's just Spider-Man, so he should probably be an insight or more than likely a liberation at this point, but I'm running authority on him for now because he also has iframe ignore, so he's kind of decent. Scarlet Witch, Rage for ABX ABL stuff, Judgment I guess, doesn't really matter. CTP of Destruction, she opens with her 5 and does some pretty big AoE burst damage like these other characters. CTP of Authority, I think. I ran that before to counter the X-Men character so that he would go into those kind of skills that would give him buffs and debuff the X-Men characters, the mutant characters. I run a CTP of Conquest. Most people seem to like Greed with Sentry at a high level. I prefer Conquest for Challenger Timeline. Destruction so that she awaken bombs the opponent. Destruction for the same reason. CTP of Authority to keep him alive longer to do his Reflect ability. Doesn't matter. CTP of Energy. Mostly just going to be used for PvE or I guess burst damage in Alliance Conquest. If you don't like that, you can use something else, but I have to give you some options for energy if you have those in your inventory. CTP of Insight for her. You can boost up your team with her leadership and the insight. Similarly for Shuri. I guess for her as well, though I think I'm running a CTP of Authority for her. Sorry. Let me check here. What am I running on this character? Oh, I'm running a CTP of Insight, yeah. For Alliance Conquest, I don't think that really matters, but yeah, you're probably going to use her for PvE stuff anyway, so like PvE support. This CTP of Authority, keep her alive long, stay in those iframes, do the iframe ignore. Silver Surfer Conquest is what I found to be the most ideal. Some people prefer Refinement, so that is definitely an option you can consider. Authority is one other potential option, but I find these two are probably the top ones for him. Conquest probably being the most ideal if you run him with supports. Insight for her, you can use her for PvE stuff, doesn't really matter. I recently switched her to Liberation. I had a CTP Authority, but I'm comboing her with other Insight characters with Doctor Doom. So I run Doctor Doom on the side, Victorious as a leadership and her as a support, so it provides the debuff, cleanse, and all of Victorious's benefits. Doesn't really matter. CTP of Authority to make him annoying, like delay the fight for the opponent. I'm actually running a CTP Authority for Sleeper, but I'm pretty sure that he should be a CTP of Liberation. I'm just testing him, but I think most people should run this to get the support capabilities out of him. Songbird doesn't matter. Running a CTP Authority for her to stack up the energy damage reduction with the steal effects. I stack up damage reduction for her similar to what I do with Quicksilver. So these are, I run the same thing for the exact same reasons. I run supports with both these characters because they don't have damage reduction natively. I build that up, run steal proc with it, and get some pretty good survivability out of it. You can do the same thing for Spider-Man, though I am currently testing Conquest with Agent Venom support and other supports like that. And largely I found that this kind of worked better for me, though most people seem to prefer either an Authority. You can definitely run him with a regen if you don't have all these other CTPs just to constantly stack to these characters that I'm mentioning. Destruction, he hides in iframes. You can burst them down when they can't hit you. I believe I have a CTP of Authority for her. Let me double check here. Yeah, CTP of Authority for her, just because she's a little bit annoying. You probably want to change what I have because you don't want to run Chasm and her without any supports, but yeah, I'm currently testing that out. I don't usually run them with Spider-Man. I usually run them with Silk, so I kind of want all of them to survive. But yeah, I probably need to change that up. Authority for Spot, that's the one that I found worked the best. Tried out other builds like Regen because I think he spams heals, but I found the Authority just worked much better for him. I think she has a Destruction, but I don't remember. Yeah, I think she hides in iframes, so again, you want penetration to hit them. I think the same thing for Star-Lord. Yeah, hides in iframes, you want that burst damage. I run CTP of Rage on her, but you likely want an Insight for her. I just use this to do some of the higher stages for World Boss Legend. Haven't changed this in a long while, so I would probably say you want Liberation or Insight on her. Or possibly Judgment, I guess. That would probably work better if you were pushing World Boss Legend. But yeah, if you don't have some of these other characters for ABX, ABL, then you probably want to put a Rage on her and run her for that. Strife, CTP of Authority. You can run him with Conquest. I've just found Authority seem to be more consistent. CTP of Destruction for the same reason as these other ones. Awaken Bomb the character. You can also run Insight or Liberation to boost up that, but I prefer running that. Authority, she doesn't have good HP, base HP, so her survivability increases more with Authority. Whew, almost done here. This character doesn't really matter. I just dropped him somewhere. Where did I drop him? Here. Yeah, you can run like an Authority here. That character doesn't matter too much. Authority. These characters don't have too many upgrades, so you want Invincible instead of HP increases. Insight, support capabilities. Authority I found worked best for him. I don't remember why, but just take my word for it. You can run him with Authority or Conquest. I prefer Conquest. Authority is very popular as well. There isn't really any wrong options here. It just depends on your cards and the ways that you team him up. I have CTP of Rage on her from before. But she isn't really worth that now, so you probably want something like a Destruction or something on her. Or I think he has Guard Break Immunity, I don't remember, but yeah. And then a CTP of Insight or Regen for him. Probably an Insight. I have a CTP of Rage to run him in things like zombies and other stuff. I find that's most ideal across all the different modes. I have a CTP of Regen on her because she has good base HP. You want to keep her alive for the iframe ignore. CTP Authority on him I found worked the best. Stack up that steel proc with his passive. Doesn't really matter. CTP of Destruction on him. Activate that iframe ignore artifact because he usually stays in iframes and it will probably trigger. Doesn't really matter. CTP of Destruction. Hides in iframes. Want that penetration, iframe ignore. Similar here. Though you probably can run her with Insight or Liberation. CTP of Rage here. The character is quite good in PvE now. And then Victorious. I run a CTP of Insight to boost up Doom and run again, like I mentioned, Liberation on Sister Grimm. Pair her with Doom. This character doesn't really matter. Vision, I run with CTP of Regen just because I have so many spare. You probably want Authority to keep him alive for the reflect damage. Insight for Volstagg. Like I mentioned before, he has the kind of Colossus support, so you can pair him with superhero characters. This character doesn't really matter too much. Destruction for him, you can probably run with Insight stuff. But I find he stays in iframe, so you can get that penetration and burst damage there. Character doesn't really matter. CTP of Regen here. High base HP, passive healing, so you want to boost that up. CTP of Insight for Werewolf. Same thing for Wasp. It's going to be used support. Going to be used support here. Weapon Hex, I run a Conquest, though I think most people seem to prefer Greed to get that burst damage. Either works, depends on your build and how you want to use her. CTP of Greed is probably the more ideal option for her for the most part, but I'm currently testing Conquest. CTP of Regen for him has good base HP. His abilities also boost HP, so Regen does work effectively for him, and it knocks opponents out of their iframes and supports your team. I have a CTP of Authority on him to keep him alive longer, because I usually just run him with Hulk and Red She-Hulk, so I don't want it to necessarily just be Hulk that does anything, and he also has penetration, so it kind of ends up working well. You can obviously run Insight and or Liberation, probably more more ideally for him in most cases, though. This is Insight. These characters don't really matter. CTP of Destruction to get that burst damage with the iframe Ignore. This you can run with a lot of things. You can run him with a Conquest, an Authority, or Greed. It really comes down to preference of how you want to build him. I kind of use the old uniform with Greed still, because I prefer the more iframes that the old uniform has. But yeah, you can run him with pretty much any of these options here. I run a CTP of Greed on Wong, because it usually hides in iframes, so he doesn't really have necessarily the best survivability. I think some people run him with Authority, but I kind of prefer him just to immediately go into his iframe and then iframe Ignore and burst down the opponent before they really kind of start doing anything. I have a CTP of Refinement on her because she has a guard break immunity, and because I'm going to take her to tier 4. If you don't have her tier 4, probably want to run a regen on her to improve her survivability there, because her base HP isn't enough to really boost up her healing there. CTP of Regen on her to knock opponents out of their iframes, although she does have iframe Ignore. Probably run a CTP Authority on her because her base health isn't that great. Maybe that is what I'm running on her. I think I remember running a CTP of Regen. Let me double check here quickly. Yeah, I have a CTP of Regen still on her, but yeah, that's arguable. It doesn't really matter. And then a CTP of Insight here. And that kind of wraps up all of that. I'm going to check the comments here quickly because I've kind of ignored them. So sorry guys, but yeah, this tier list has been kind of crazy, so yeah, I don't know. CTP of Veteran Wear, I was gonna put that in as a joke, but yeah, that didn't really make the cut. So yeah, just to wrap up everything here, because this actually, I guess, should have been 2 videos, but I wanted to get this out before the Black Friday discount stuff ends, so I think it'll really help some people out. But yeah, these are the tier lists. So this is the character tier list for Alliance Conquest currently for update 10.5. I already went in depth on why I chose this particular list. I'll probably include kind of screenshots of this afterwards on my Discord if you're interested in checking that out or wanting to reference it in the future. But this is the Alliance Conquest tier list for characters, and then this is for the CTPs that I'm currently using and the ones that I would probably suggest, though these are just kind of suggestions and information for the most part. If you don't build characters like this, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. It just really comes down to how you're using your teams, what your current card sets and kind of account looks like, and it'll really differ from player to player. But just to give you kind of an idea where you might want to go with certain CTPs that you have in your inventory or kind of have put on different characters, and where you might want to utilize those. But yeah, I think that pretty much does it. I would want to stay around and do some answer some comments and stuff like that, but I am frankly pretty tired and I need to get some food into me. So hopefully this live stream got this information to you guys a little bit quicker. I'll try and do more fun live streams because I don't think this was too fun. This was just me ranting for like an hour or two. Yeah, I'll try to do more fun ones in the future. But yeah, I think that kind of wraps it up for now. I wanted to try the live stream for these because otherwise if I kind of recorded these videos and had to edit them and put them out, I think it would have taken a lot longer. Now you can just kind of check them out and probably share them with other people if they're kind of interested and still wondering about where to put their CTPs and how to build characters. Anyways, I need to get some water. I need to get some food. Hopefully this helps you out. Thanks for coming to the live stream and kind of supporting me while I was putting together all of this. I do appreciate that. I always do. So hopefully everyone has a good rest of their day and a good next week, since it's pretty much the end of the weekend now, unfortunately. Goes by too quick, I tell you. We need a third weekend day. But yeah, that pretty much wraps it up, and I think I'm going to end the stream here. Again, thanks for the support. When this video or when this live stream ends and this turns into a video, I would appreciate if you could leave a like or maybe a comment or something like that if you have time. That's always appreciated. But yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. Thanks again for tuning into the stream, and have a good rest of your day. Thanks.